Hello everyone, Nina here with Waffle Flower. We received many requests on having more stitching dies. We have many designs in the works, very exciting, and in this video, I'm going to share 3 cards I made with the stitching butterfly die for our Flutter by release. This is probably the longest video I've ever made, but explaining how to stitch on cards was harder than I thought. If you're only interested in one of these 3 cards, you can find the timestamp down below in the video description with a link that will take you to just that part of the video. Let's get started with our first card. Start with making a side-folding A2 card base from yellow cardstock. I'm adding some stitching details with the tiny crosses texture die to both the card front and the white panel with a butterfly-shaped window. The window was cut out by the butterfly shaker die. You'll find a dedicated video on that in the video description below. I popped this panel up with some foam strips for dimension. I then used my thread swatches to find the perfect match for the yellow cardstock. I shared how I made these swatches in another video. You can find the link in the description below. Did you notice that there are 7 slots on both the thread swatches and the project cards? This is designed to work together. I'm transferring the threads I'm going to use for stitching on the project cards. If you're new to stitching, I have a detailed video showing how to prepare for a stitching project on StitchableCards channel. You can find the link in the video description below. I'm using a number 22 needle and I can easily push it through a stitching hole our dies cut out for about 12 times using 6 strands of embroidery floss, undivided. In cross stitching, you will probably separate the strands to stitch, but for stitching on cards, I actually prefer the look undivided and it saves me a lot of time. So here's the new stitching butterfly die designed by our design team member, Galina. Some of the circles are connected with cut lines to show you where the stitches should go. We have many samples on the product page showing you the results, but in this video, I'm going to share a few different ways to customize these butterflies. There are 2 dies in this set, and I usually start with the outline die, then line up the detail die to cut out the little circles for stitching. Remember that for all the little circles, we have the A2 piercing die to help you poke out the little pieces. Do this over your trash can to avoid a mess. I tried both the yellow and a white butterfly and decided a white butterfly with yellow stitches will work better for this card. I used simple back stitches for the body of the butterfly. Since you're doing this on paper and no one will see the back, you can totally use a piece of tape to help you hold down the ends, just like what I did. Backstitch is a basic stitch that works great for outlines. I'm going to use only back stitches on this butterfly. The only note I have for you is that see the upper ring, the point of the upper ring towards the center is not symmetrical. But that's where I'm going to add my sentiment strip so it doesn't bother me. And at the tip of the upper ring, all 4 of the stitches go through the hole in the center here. As mentioned earlier, I'm using a number 22 needle and had no issue pushing the needle through these holes multiple times. Same thing for the lower rings. It was very relaxing to stitch the butterfly this way, and it doesn't take long. Add it to the card with some foam strips and a sentiment from our sub-sentiment kindness die cut sheet. I was done with my first card. For my second card, the stitching butterfly die actually works with the butterfly sling shaker cover. The outline is a tad bit bigger than the butterfly shaker die, but you probably wouldn't notice it if I didn't point it out. Instead of adding shaker elements, I'm just going to use a shaker cover to help me highlight the stitching die. I think it's cute, even without any stitches. I then die cut the rectangle pinking frame from both white and yellow cardstock to help add some virtual interest to the card. Both cards are simple, and you can easily swap out the yellow cardstock with your recipient's favorite color. The next card I'm going to share definitely involves more stitching. I've already transferred all the threads in the yellow and orange family from our StitchableCards thread collection to the project card. I will use the hose and top for some excess threads I might have. This is how the first layer of the lightest yellow thread were stitched. Sorry, but I forgot to turn on my camera when I was stitching this layer. I freeze the video for a few more seconds here so you can sort of see where everything goes. I ended up changing the bottom of the wings a bit, and I will show you later in this video. I'm using SC21 for the medium orange color. I just wanted to share that you don't need to be afraid to have the threads overlap a bit. It adds virtual interest. Consider yourself coloring with threads. All the holes are there already, and all you need to do is to connect them, right? I wasn't thinking too much when I was stitching this. I ended up undo a few stitches, and I will show you how later in this video.
When we were young, running from all things at once, without thinking twice.
Using SC16 for the darkest orange. You know there is a general rule for applying colors to a project. The darkest, most intense color should be used only sparingly for a balanced design. It's the same for needlework. I will go ahead and show you how I did the other upper wing before showing you the lower wings. The stitches are gathered into two holes here. I alternated the sides to keep the threads as flat as possible since we're going to stitch more on top. This part of the video is speed up 2 times. I do not stitch this fast. You may also notice that the butterfly is not staying in focus. I was too close to the camera, and a tiny bit of movement will throw the camera off. I didn't notice it until later, so any of the stitching process you didn't see was because the footage was too blurry to be useful. Now the lower wings. First, the 3 stitches in top. Then go down a hole in the center and connect all but one of the dots along the edges to the hole. The hole you will skip is the one in the middle here, and you should get something like this. Then the medium orange thread. Sorry my hands were at the corners, but hope you can see it better here. I just connected all the dots to the same hole the 3 stitches and top went into. I then stitched the butterfly body using the darkest orange. I'm all over the place because I'm trying to add what I know for sure I want in place, and then I can adjust the rest. I was way off screen, but hope you can see how I added the darkest orange to the lower wings. I love how it turned out. You probably noticed that I stitched the medium orange differently on the left. I pulled the threads through a round hole. What I want was to have them all go into the hole that is above my needle here. But it was easy to fix. I feel the 4 stitches in dark orange was making the upper wings too heavy, so I changed it to a simple stitch. Thanks to the magic of video editing, I was able to fix the other way in a few seconds. Much more balanced, right? I feel we need something bulkier and darker in the middle to help balance the design out even more. So I just wrapped some black threads a few times around the center. I left a loop so I could trim it apart to be the antenna. Now to finish my card. Did you know that the nesting rectangle frame style could work for backing up some of the dotted rectangles? I picked them out and centered them on a piece of cardstock trimmed to A2 size, which is 4¼ by 5½, and then cut out all the holes. And use my A2 piercing panel die to help pop out all the tiny pieces over a trash can off screen. Cut out the frames in 3 shades of cardstock that matches the thread I used, then add to the back of my dotted panel. I feel we need a bit more color on the outside of this panel, and our new H6 layer die come in handy. Here's the measurement for making an H6 card base. You just need to trim your cardstock to 6¼ by 9 and then score in 4½ inches, then fold in half. For letter-sized paper that we use here in the US, you just need to trim off 2¼ lengthwise to get 6¼ by 11, and then trim off 2 inches waistwise to get 6¼ by 9. What I'm doing now is just to smooth out the embossed edges on the back of the A6 layer. Unfortunately, this is inevitable for all open dies, and it's even more noticeable on bigger dies like this. But I found it was easy enough to smooth out. And we have the perfect sentiment to go with the stitching butterfly. I usually stamp out a sentiment multiple times, then pick the best one to cut out. This is when I found out the matching die for this sentiment was separated. It still works, but it just takes 2 rounds instead of 1 to cut them out. This will be fixed in our next shipment, so the die and the combo is temporarily discounted on our website. They will go back to full price once the current stock sold out. The new die will also cut out the sentiment in 2 parts, so you will have the freedom to arrange them the way you like. Using our perfectly sized foam strips, I raised the sentiment die cut a bit, so it will be at the same level of our stitched butterfly. With stitching, the butterfly is thick, and this is probably music to your ears if you like dimensioning like me. I left the antenna extra long so I can trim them to desired length after all the pieces are in place. I love it when a plan comes together. All 3 cards using the stitching butterfly die. Hope you enjoy this video and are inspired to try some stitching yourself. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you again soon.